I want you to visualize a tragedy today. But it's a silent tragedy. It's this small, almost heartbreaking moment in nature that, and this is the crazy part, explains almost everything about the modern human condition.
It really does. It's one of those parables, one of those stories that once you hear it, you can't unsee it. You start seeing it everywhere.
Everywhere.
In your kitchen, on your phone, I mean, even in your relationships. It's fundamental.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We are in the mid-20th century. We're standing in a grassy field, probably somewhere in the Netherlands. And we're looking at a ground-nesting bird, a gray-legged goose, to be specific.
A classic, a beautiful bird.
And she is doing exactly what millions of years of evolution have programmed her to do. She's sitting on her nest. She's got this perfect clutch of speckled, goose egg-sized eggs. She's keeping them warm. She's protecting them from predators.
Yeah.
She is, by all accounts, being the perfect mother.
It's a scene that has played out for eons. Right?
Yeah.
It's nature working perfectly. The biological imperatives just
Yeah.
until a man named Nicholas Tinbergen walks into the field.
Tinbergen, the father of ethology, the study of animal behavior in their natural habitat.
Right. And Tinbergen isn't just there to birdwatch. He's there to test the machinery. He wants to know, on a deep level, does the goose know those are her eggs? Is there an emotional connection? Or is she just running a software program?
An instinctual program.
Exactly. So he decides to play a trick on this poor, unsuspecting goose.
A cruel trick, honestly, when you think about it.
It is a little bit. He constructs a fake egg. But this isn't just like a plaster cast of a normal egg. He makes it massive. We're talking the size of a volleyball.
Okay, so just to be clear here, this thing looks absolutely nothing like a real goose egg.
Nothing.
It's a beach ball. He paints it with bright, vivid colors. He puts giant black polka dots on it. It is physically impossible for a goose to have laid this thing.
She would explode. I mean, literally.
Right. So from a human perspective, a logical perspective, it's clearly a toy. It's garbage. It's a cartoon prop that somebody left in the field.
Exactly. And so Tinbergen places this neon monstrosity right next to the nest.
Yeah.
Right next to her real, live, viable babies. And he steps back to watch. And this is where the tragedy happens.
This is the moment.
You'd expect the goose to be scared of it, right?
Right.
Or at least ignore it, but she doesn't. She looks at her own real eggs. Then she looks at this giant polka-dotted volleyball. And something short-circuits in her brain.
She makes a choice.
She makes a choice. She stands up, she abandons her real offspring, she waddles over to the fake egg and tries to climb on top of it. She's sliding off. She's stretching her legs to the absolute breaking point, trying to cover this impossible object.
Her real eggs.
She ignores them. She ignores the chirping of her real chicks inside their shells, letting them go cold and die just so she can sit on this piece of plaster.
It's horrifying, but it's also deeply fascinating. She destroys her own genetic legacy. She ends her own bloodline because she prefers the fake over the real. Why? Why would she do that?
Because the fake was louder. And this is the term that Tinbergen coined. This is what he called a supernormal stimulus.
A supernormal stimulus.
Yes. And here's the mission for our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We look at that bird, and we think, oh, you stupid bird, you silly little biological machine. But the reality is, we are the bird.
We are the goose.
We are absolutely the goose, and we are living in a world that is full of volleyballs.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I know where this is going, and I think it's really important to frame it correctly for everyone listening. We are going to talk about the human version of the giant egg. And in our modern world, specifically when it comes to sexuality, that giant egg is pornography.
Correct. That's the volleyball we're going to dissect.
Now, I think when people hear the word pornography in a show like this, they tense up. They immediately expect a sermon. They expect a moral debate or a religious lecture or, a political argument about the industry itself.
And I want to be crystal clear. That is not what we are doing today. We are not here to judge what you watch or don't watch. We aren't here to talk about sin or virtue or anything like that. We are looking at this strictly, and I mean strictly, through the lens of biology, evolution, and neuroscience. We're talking about hardware.
Right. We're mechanics looking at an engine. We're not judging the driver.
Exactly. We want to understand how modern technology, specifically online adult content, acts as this giant egg that can hack our ancient biological drives.
Yeah.
Why do our brains sometimes prefer the pixelated fantasy over the messy, complicated, beautiful reality? And what does that actually do to the physical structure of our brains over time?
I love this approach because it takes the shame out of it. It replaces judgment with curiosity. It's like, let's just look under the hood of the human machine and see why the check engine light might be on for some people.
Precisely. And to do that, we have to go back to the biology. We need to really understand what we're talking about. So, section 1, the fake is better phenomenon.
Okay, you mentioned Tinbergen and the term supernormal stimulus. Let's drill down on that definition. What exactly is it?
Sure. So a supernormal stimulus is an artificial, exaggerated version of a natural trigger, a stimulus that elicits a response that is stronger than the natural version.
Stronger than nature intended.
Much, much stronger. See, animal brains, and our brains are no different in this regard, are pre-wired. We have these things called fixed action patterns. They're instinctual behaviors that get triggered by very specific cues in the environment. Tinbergen called these cues sign stimuli, or releasers.
So it's like a computer code. It's a simple command. If see red, then peck.
That's a perfect way to put it. The brain isn't analyzing the whole picture. It's not thinking deeply like, is this my mother? Does she love me? It's using shortcuts. It sees a specific shape or specific color, and a little program runs in the brain that says, this is valuable, go get it.
But the problem is, in nature, those shortcuts work perfectly. They're reliable.
For millions of years, they were flawless. Because in nature, more usually does mean better. If an egg is bigger, it's probably healthier, it has more yolk, more chance of survival. If a fruit is redder, it's probably riper and has more sugar, more energy. The brain evolved to prefer the exaggerated version because, in the wild, you never encounter a fake version.
Nature doesn't have pranksters making plaster eggs. Nature doesn't have Photoshop or high fructose corn syrup.
Exactly. So the evolutionary flaw, the glitch in the system, is that we don't have an off switch for things that are too good to be true. The brain just assumes, wow, this is the best egg ever, this is the jackpot. It can't comprehend that it's being tricked.
And it wasn't just the goose, right? Tinbergen found this glitch everywhere he looked.
Everywhere. It's a fundamental principle of animal behavior. Let's look at the herring gull chick. This is another classic study. So you have these baby chicks in the nest. They're hungry. They need to tell their mom to regurgitate food for them. How do they do that?
They peck at her beak, don't they? I remember reading about this.
Specifically, they peck at a little red spot on the mother's lower beak. That red spot is the sign stimulus. It's the button.
Red spot equals dinner.
Red spot equals dinner. Simple as that.
Right.
So Tinbergen, being the trickster he is, he makes a fake beak. He gets a stick, just a plain wooden stick, and he paints a massive bright red spot on it. Much bigger and much redder than the spot on the real mother's beak.
And he presents this to the chicks. What happens?
The chicks go berserk. I mean, they completely ignore the real mother standing right there with a normal spot on her beak, and they peck furiously at the stick. They are hypnotized by the intensity of the color. They prefer the stick because the signal is louder.
It's like they can't help themselves. The instinct, that little piece of code, completely overrides the reality in front of them.
Or take the butterfly. This one is fascinating because it gets into sexual selection. The silver-washed fritillary butterfly.
Great name. Sounds very majestic.
It is. The male butterflies, they look for very specific wing patterns to find a mate. It's a rapid visual scan. Does she have the pattern? Yes. Okay, mate.
It's a very simple algorithm.
A very simple, very efficient algorithm. So researchers created cardboard models. They painted the wing patterns on these little paper discs, but they made the patterns darker, more defined, higher contrast. And then, this is the real kicker, they put the discs on a little motor and spun them rapidly to create this kind of super flashing effect.
The disco butterfly.
Exactly, a strobe light female. And the males would go crazy. They would swarm the cardboard disc trying to mate with this fitting paper, completely ignoring the real living females flying right past them.
They are literally choosing a piece of cardboard over a real opportunity to pass on their genes.
Because the cardboard is shouting the signal louder.
That's the key phrase. It shouts the signal. And the primitive part of the brain always follows the volume.
Always.
Okay, before we make the jump into the human sexual side of this, because that's obviously a very heavy and complex topic, I think there's a human parallel that makes this whole concept really easy to grasp. And it's not sex, it's food.
Yes. The junk food analogy is the perfect bridge. I honestly think you can't understand the dynamics of modern pornography until you understand the donut.
Because we all experience this. I mean, if you put a bowl of steamed broccoli and a fresh glazed donut in front of me, look, I'm a rational adult. I know the broccoli is good for me. I know the donut is loaded with sugar and fat. But my brain is screaming for the donut.
And that's not because you're weak-willed. It's not a moral failing. It's because you were an evolved biological organism. Think about our ancestors on the savannah. For 99.9% of human history, we live in an environment of scarcity.
Right. The paleo reality.
Calories were incredibly hard to come by. Starvation was a real daily threat. In that environment, sweet flavors like ripe fruit or a rare honeycomb were incredibly valuable. You might find a beehive once a year. You might find berries for just 2 weeks in late summer.
So sweet was a signal, a very powerful one.
Sweet was the most valuable signal in the entire forest, it meant. High energy, safe to eat, non-poisonous. Eat this immediately and eat all of it.
So our brains evolved a very simple rule. If it tastes sweet, gorge. Don't save it, don't share it, eat until you're sick, because you might not find this kind of energy source again for 6 months.
Exactly. That is the fixed action pattern. Taste sweet, release dopamine, keep eating. It was a brilliant survival mechanism for millennia.
But then we invented the supermarket and the food lab.
We didn't just find more berries, we reverse engineered the survival mechanism. We engineered the supernormal stimulus. Food scientists, and actual people in lab coats with PhDs, figured out how to find the bliss point.
The bliss point.
The perfect combination of sugar, fat, and salt that maximizes the reward signal in the brain. They created things like donuts or Doritos or soda. These things concentrate sugar and fat to levels that absolutely do not exist in nature. You will never find a donut bush in the wild. You will never hunt an animal that is 50% refined sugar and 50% saturated fat.
It's the volleyball.
It is the volleyball. It is brighter, sweeter, and fattier than anything nature could possibly produce. So when you bite into it, your ancient brain lights up like a pinball machine. It screams, "This is the greatest discovery in history. We have hit the caloric jackpot. We will survive the winter."
And so our taste buds get hijacked. We start to prefer the supernormal, the processed food over the natural, like an apple. The apple tastes boring or subtle compared to the overwhelming signal of the donut.
And the result is the modern health crisis: obesity, diabetes, heart disease. We are the herring gulls, pecking at the stick of junk food and ignoring the real mother of nutritious whole foods.
Okay, so that's the mechanism. We have this ancient hardware that's programmed to think more is better. We have modern technology that can create infinite more. And now we have to apply that same industrial engineering mindset to human sexuality.
This brings us right to Section 2, pornography through the lens of evolutionary psychology.
So let's set the baseline again. What is the natural environment for human sexuality? What's the context our brains were actually built for?
Well, this is what's known as the mismatch theory. We have to remember that for the vast majority of human history, we didn't have screens. We didn't even have books. We lived in small, tight-knit tribes. Maybe 150 people tops.
Dunbar's number. The maximum number of stable social relationships we can maintain.
Right. So finding a mate in that environment was hard work. It required immense social risk. It took time. You had to court someone. You had to demonstrate your value. You had to deal with the very real possibility of public rejection.
And your pool of potential mates was incredibly small. You were limited by geography, by social status, by family connections.
Exactly. So your sexual opportunities were naturally and severely limited. That is the high-friction environment that our sexual drives evolved in.
And then suddenly, in the bling of an evolutionary eye, we have the internet.
And pornography acts as the giant egg by stripping away all of that context, all the effort, the risk, the time, the friction, and just blasting the brain with a raw, unfiltered signal.
The sources we're looking at break this down into 3 core pillars of how porn acts as a supernormal stimulus. Let's tackle the first one. Hyperstimulation, the visuals themselves.
This is the most obvious parallel to the giant polka-dotted egg. In nature, we're instinctively attracted to specific visual cues that signal health and fertility. Things like clear skin, facial symmetry, a certain waist-to-hip ratio in women, a strong shoulder-to-waist ratio in men. These are ancient biological markers.
Right. The proxies for good genes, a good bet for reproduction.
But in the world of online porn, these features are exaggerated to an impossible degree. We're not just seeing attractive people, we're seeing curated bodies.
It's way beyond just being attractive. It's the result of plastic surgery. It's professional, flawless lighting. It's 4K makeup applied by experts. It's digital editing, airbrushing, color correction.
It is the cardboard butterfly. It's brighter, bolder, and more flawless than anything you will ever encounter in reality.
Yeah.
And it's not just the static bodies, it's the acts themselves. The action in porn is often highly performative. It's an athletic spectacle. It's focused on the visual camera angles, designed to show everything in microscopic detail. rather than the messy, awkward, emotional reality of mutual intimacy.
So your brain is seeing this, and the ancient part of it is thinking, wow, this is the most fertile, healthy, incredible mate I have ever seen. This is a super mate.
And because the brain, at that deep instinctual level, can't really distinguish between pixels on a screen and a real person in front of you, it reacts as if you have stumbled into a valley filled with the most genetically perfect humans to ever exist.
Which leads directly to the second pillar, and this one really stuck out to me because of the specific biological mechanism involved, infinite novelty. You mentioned something called the Coolidge effect.
Yes. And to understand why modern internet pornography is so uniquely potent, we have to talk about the 30th President of the United States.
Wait, which one? Calvin Coolidge.
Calvin Coolidge, Helen Cal. There's a famous story, and it might be apocryphal, but the science behind it is solid. President Coolidge and the First Lady were being given separate tours of a government farm. The First Lady went to the chicken coops, and she saw a rooster mating with a hen. She turned to the farmer and asked, "Does he do that often?"
Oh, okay, I think I see where this is going.
The farmer says, "Oh yes, dozens of times a day, ma'am." She nods and says with a little smile, "Tell that to the president."
Laughs. Wow. Shots fired by the First Lady in the 1920s.
So the president comes by later on his tour, and the farmer, being a good messenger, passes on the message. "Mr. President, your wife wanted you to know that this rooster here mates dozens of times a day." And Coolidge pauses, looks at the rooster, and asks a brilliant question. "Same hen every time?"
And the farmer says,
"No, sir, a different one every time." And Coolidge turns to the farmer and says, "Tell that to Mrs. Coolidge."
that is the Coolidge effect.
That is the Coolidge effect in a nutshell. And we see it in rats, in sheep, in hamsters, yes, in humans. If you put a male rat in a cage with a female rat, he will mate with her until he is physically exhausted. He reaches what's called a refractory period. He literally cannot perform anymore. He's done. The tank is empty.
He's tapping out.
But if you then take that first female out and drop a new female rat into the cage, immediately he revives. The refractory period vanishes. He is ready to go again.
So the brain wakes up for novelty.
Yeah.
What's the biological purpose of that?
It's all about genetic diversity. From a cold evolutionary standpoint, spreading your genes to 10 different partners is a much better reproductive strategy than mating 10 times with the same partner. The brain is hardwired to value novelty above almost everything else. Novelty triggers a unique and powerful dopamine surge that familiar stimuli just can't match.
And this is where the smartphone and high-speed internet it breaks the game.
It completely shatters the game. In our ancestral tribe of 150 people, how often would you encounter a new potential mate? Once a year, maybe. If another tribe wandered through your territory.
If you were very, very lucky.
On a generic porn site, you could see 20 new potential mates in 60 seconds. You can swipe, you can click, you can refresh, you can open a new tab, you can go to a different category.
It puts the Coolidge effect on hyperdrive, on steroids.
It creates an infinite digital harem in your pocket. And every single click triggers that little spike of, ooh, new, ooh, different. It's the red spot on the beak, flashing over and over and over again, thousands of times an hour.
Which brings us to the third and final pillar, accessibility and low cost.
This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. In the wild, sex is expensive. Not money expensive, but resource expensive. It takes energy. You have to pursue someone. You have to compete with rivals. You might get rejected. You might get into a physical fight. It takes massive amounts of time and energy.
High risk, high reward.
Pornography is zero risk, zero effort. It's available 24/7. It is a hyper-efficient delivery system for that reward. I mean, why go hunting out in the cold, track a deer for 3 days, and risk getting gored by its antlers when you could just have a pizza delivered to your couch in 30 minutes?
Why deal with the incredible complexity of a real human relationship? The talking, the listening, the vulnerability, the compromise, when you can get the dopamine hit in 30 seconds alone in your room.
Exactly. And that hyper-efficiency is what makes it so powerfully addictive. The brain is, at its core, an efficiency machine. It loves the shortcut. It will always, always choose the path of least resistance unless we consciously force it to do otherwise.
So we have this perfect storm, we have hypervisuals, the volleyball, we have infinite novelty, the Coolidge effect, and we have zero cost, the pizza delivery. Now let's go under the hood. Let's get into section 3, the neuroscience of the hijack. What is physically happening in the brain when we engage with this kind of supernormal stimulus?
To understand this, we have to talk about dopamine. And I think a lot of people misunderstand dopamine. They think it's the pleasure molecule.
Right, like, I eat the chocolate, I get the dopamine, I feel happy. The reward itself.
It's actually a bit more complex and, frankly, more interesting than that. Neuroscientists these days distinguish between the liking system, which is often opioid-based, that feeling of satisfaction and contentment, and the wanting system. Dopamine is the molecule of wanting. It's the molecule of seeking and anticipation.
So it's the drive, it's the itch, not the scratch.
That's the perfect way to describe it. It's the fuel that pushes you to go get the reward.
Right.
It's the feeling you get when you're scrolling through a food delivery app, not the feeling you get after you've eaten the burger. It's the motivation chemical.
And in nature, the hunt for a mate is long. It involves a lot of steps, a lot of seeking. Dopamine is what keeps you motivated through that long, arduous process.
Exactly. But in porn, the hunt is rapid fire. Click. New video. Click. New thumbnail. Click.
That's like a slot machine.
It is exactly the same neurological mechanism as gambling. Each thumbnail is a potential jackpot. And because it's so fast, you get these incredibly rapid, unnatural spikes of dopamine, spike, 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 that you would never, ever get in the slow, natural rhythm of real-life courtship.
But what happens when you flood the brain with that much dopamine that frequently? I mean, the brain is a delicate ecosystem, right? It's all about balance.
The brain tries to protect itself. It's a process called homeostasis. Imagine you're at a concert. If the music is at a normal volume, you can hear everything fine. But if you stand right in front of the speaker stack at a heavy metal show for an hour, what happens?
Your ears ring, you go kind of deaf for a little while, everything sounds muffled.
Right. Your ears physically dampen the sound to prevent permanent damage to your eardrums. The brain does the exact same thing with neurochemistry. If there's too much dopamine flooding the system, day after day, the brain says, whoa, this is too loud, this is toxic. And so it begins to downregulate the dopamine receptors.
It downregulates. What does that mean physically?
It literally removes some of the dopamine receptors from the synapses. It reduces the number of ears it has available to hear the dopamine signal. It's a protective measure.
And that biological process is what we experience as
Desensitization, or in more common terms, tolerance.
tolerance. The same concept as with alcohol or any other drug.
It is precisely the same mechanism. A heavy drinker needs 6 beers to feel the buzz that a non-drinker feels after one. In the context of porn, this means the vanilla content that used to be arousing, the normal stuff, doesn't work anymore. It feels boring. The brain has become deaf to that level of stimulus.
So we have to escalate.
You have to escalate. The user often finds themselves moving to more extreme, more novel, or more niche genres. And it's not necessarily because that's what they're inherently into or what aligns with their values. It's because that's what's now required to punch through the tolerance and get the dopamine flowing again.
That explains so much. It explains why people often end up watching things that maybe 5 years ago they would have found totally unappealing or even disturbing.
Correct. They are chasing the giant egg. They need the egg to be bigger and brighter and weirder, just to feel something. They are desperately trying to force a reaction out of an exhausted, desensitized system.
And there's another layer to this, isn't there? Neuroplasticity, the old saying, neurons that fire together wire together.
This is the physical reshaping of the brain's structure. It's profound. If you spend hours and hours every week associating sexual arousal with a screen, with pixels, with the act of clicking a mouse, with high-speed editing and specific camera angles, your brain builds a superhighway for that connection.
You are literally conditioning yourself, Pavlov's dog, but for arousal.
You're conditioning yourself to be aroused by the technology of sex rather than the reality of sex. You're training your brain to prefer the fake egg. You are carving a groove in the mud that over time becomes a canyon, becomes the default pathway.
And this leads us directly into the real-world fallout. This isn't just happening in a vacuum. This is section 4, the consequences. Because we aren't just birds in a lab. We have lives. We have partners. We have our own mental health to worry about.
Right. And the first and most obvious consequence is a profound distortion of reality.
The giant egg effect on how we see the world and the people in it.
Just as the goose abandons her real, viable eggs, the human brain can start to downgrade reality. After you've watched perfect, airbrushed, surgically enhanced, professionally lit bodies doing acrobatic feats for hours on end, a real human body with pores and stretch marks and asymmetrical features and normal bedroom lighting can seem, well, underwhelming.
It creates this impossible unspoken standard, not just for your partner, but for yourself, too. I imagine body image issues must be rampant.
Absolutely. Why don't I look like that? Why doesn't my partner look like that? And it's not just the looks, it's the performance. Porn scripts are not written by biologists or sex therapists. They're written by directors aiming for a visual product. They show levels of endurance, instant arousal, and specific acts that simply don't match average human physiology.
It's like watching a Marvel movie and then being genuinely disappointed that you can't fly.
That is a perfect analogy. You watch Superman fly for 2 hours, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and think, man, I'm so lame, I have to walk everywhere. But walking is the human reality. Flying is a special effect. Porn is a sexual special effect.
And this distortion leads to something that seems to be becoming more and more common, which is deeply ironic considering how much sex people are watching. And that's sexual dysfunction, specifically something called PIE.
Porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Yes. This is a very real, very biological phenomenon that urologists and therapists are seeing more and more. We are seeing physically healthy young men who should be in their absolute sexual prime, testosterone raging, who are unable to achieve or maintain an erection with a real, live partner.
Why? What's the mechanism there? Is it performance anxiety?
It can be, but often the root cause is that the natural stimulus, the real partner right there in the room, simply isn't strong enough to trigger the rewired, desensitized brain. The real partner is the normal egg. The brain is sitting there waiting for the giant egg.
It's waiting for the super stimulus. It's waiting for the rapid fire editing, the impossible bodies, the novelty.
Exactly. Real sex is slow. It involves pauses. It involves awkward fumbling. It involves communication and connection. It's not a perfectly edited highlight reel.
Yeah.
Compared to the high-speed, high-intensity montage of porn, real life can feel understimulating to a brain that's been desensitized. The arousal threshold has been raised so high that reality can no longer jump over it.
That is actually kind of terrifying. It's not that the body's broken, it's that the software is glitching.
The software has been calibrated for a different input. It's expecting the volleyball, and it's being presented with a real egg, and it doesn't know what to do.
And what about the emotional side of things, the erosion of intimacy?
This is perhaps the most subtle but profound cost. Pornography is, by its very nature, a solo activity. It is self-focused. It removes reciprocity entirely.
You don't have to care about the pixels on the screen. The pixels don't have needs or feelings.
Precisely. It shifts sex from being a bonding activity, which in neurochemical terms is oxytocin-rich, that's the bonding hormone, to a consumption activity, which is dopamine-rich.
Consumption versus connection.
Yes, and when you learn to consume sex like you consume fast food or social media clips, you train yourself to view it as a commodity, as something you take for your own gratification. And when you bring that consumer mindset into a real, intimate relationship, it can cause immense damage. Partners can feel like they are constantly competing with an invisible, infinite harem.
They feel like the mother bird watching the goose try to sit on the volleyball. Why am I not enough? I'm right here. I'm real.
Why isn't the real thing enough? And the heartbreaking answer isn't that they aren't beautiful enough or desirable enough or worthy enough. The answer is because the real thing is real, and the volleyball is specifically designed to be better than real. It's designed to be a weapon aimed directly at your ancient instincts.
So where does this leave us? This brings us to Section 5, synthesis. Because we said at the top, this wasn't going to be a moral lecture. We aren't here to say that porn is evil.
No, absolutely not. The synthesis here, the main takeaway, is that it's not evil, it's just stronger.
We need to reframe the narrative.
We have to move away from shame. Shame is not a helpful emotion here. Shame is paralyzing. It keeps people stuck in cycles. The problem isn't that the user is broken or bad or perverted.
The problem is that the user is functioning exactly as designed by evolution.
Exactly. Your brain is doing what the herring gull's brain is doing. It's picking the strongest, loudest signal. You are a biological organism living in an environment that has learned how to perfectly hack your biology.
It's a fundamental mismatch. We have Stone Age brains in a Space Age world.
It is the ultimate mismatch.
Nah.
And just recognizing that, understanding that, is the first and most powerful step to taking back control. If you know why you are so powerfully drawn to the giant egg, if you understand the trick that Tinbergen is playing on you, you can start to consciously question it.
It brings up this really interesting concept of limiting factors.
In nature, there are always limits. Winter comes. Food gets scarce. There's competition for mates. Nature has stop signs built into the system.
But the digital world has no winter. The internet never runs out of food.
No winter, no scarcity, no closing time. It is an endless, infinite buffet. So because nature didn't give us an off switch for supernormal stimuli because it never needed to, we have to consciously build our own artificial ones.
We have to become the active gatekeepers of our own brains.
We have to recognize that infinite variety might actually be the enemy of satisfaction. That having every flavor of ice cream in the world available 24/7 might, ironically, ruin your ability to truly enjoy any of them.
It's like we have to consciously choose the apple over the donut, knowing that the apple is better for us in the long run, even if the donut's screaming, "Eat me now!"
And knowing that the apple, the real connection, the real intimacy, the real person, has a depth and a nutritional value that the donut, the pixels, can never, ever provide. Because the giant egg is hollow.
The giant egg is hollow. That's a powerful image to end on.
It is. The goose sits on the giant egg, she stretches her legs, she ignores her family, she devotes her entire being to it. But nothing ever hatches from the volleyball. It's a biological dead end.
Wow. Okay, let's wrap this up. We have covered a huge amount of ground today.
We certainly have.
We started with Nicholas Tinbergen's birds, the tragedy of the supernormal stimulus, the fake egg that is brighter and bigger and louder than the real thing.
And we applied that biological principle to human sexuality. How modern pornography offers unlimited novelty, exaggerated visuals, and zero cost.
Which combines to create a superstimulus that hijacks our ancient dopamine-based reward system.
Leading to desensitization, tolerance, and a physical rewiring of the brain that can make real life and real intimacy feel dull and underwhelming by comparison.
The cardboard butterfly effect. Real partners can find themselves unable to compete with an impossible digital fantasy.
But again, this isn't about morality. It's about biology. It's about understanding that your brain has vulnerabilities, these ancient back doors, and that awareness is your primary defense.
So here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. We spent this whole deep dive talking about the giant egg of pornography.
But if our brains can be tricked so easily by exaggerated sexual stimuli, if we are so fundamentally susceptible to the supernormal,
what other supernormal stimuli are you engaging with every single day without even realizing it?
that's the haunting question, isn't it? Think about video games. They're a form of supernormal achievement. You save the entire galaxy, you level up, you get the gold star, the flashing lights, all without leaving your couch. It hijacks our natural drive for competence and mastery.
Or social media. It's supernormal socializing. You get hundreds of likes, the little hearts, the feeling of connection and validation, without any of the messy, difficult, time-consuming work of actual friendship.
Or the 24-hour news cycle. It's supernormal danger. Constant threats, constant outrage, keeping your cortisol and adrenaline spiking way, way higher than they ever would in a real ancestral village where a threat might appear once a month.
So the final question to you, the listener, is this. In what areas of your life are you sitting on a giant, bright, hollow plastic egg waiting for it to hatch?
And where in the background are your real eggs starting to go cold?
Damn. That is something to chew on.
It certainly is.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one. Take care of your brains out there.